My fiancée started laughing. I slipped some peanuts into your pasta to show you've been pretending about that allergy. You're just a picky eater. As my throat began closing, I managed to text her, "Call 911. Then I handed the paramedics a sample of the food and filed a police report for assault with a deadly weapon. When the officers arrested her right there in the ER waiting area, this all went down about 18 months ago. I'm putting the entire thing in writing now because I finally feel strong enough to tell the full account. I'm 29. I was engaged to Lisa, who was 27. Notice I said was. We had been together 2 years and engaged for 4 months. The wedding had been set for the following spring. That's not happening anymore. Here's the background you need to know first. I have a life-threatening peanut allergy. Not the mild kind that gives you hives. The kind that shuts your airway and can kill you in minutes. I was diagnosed at age 6 after I almost died at a kid's birthday party. I've carried an EpiPen ever since. Lisa knew this from our very first date. I told her immediately because when someone is going to cook for you or choose restaurants, it's non-negotiable information. She acted completely understanding. She even mentioned her cousin had a serious shellfish allergy, so she got it. That was 2 years earlier. Little by little, I began noticing small remarks. Nothing huge at first. When we ate out and I double-checked with the server about peanut ingredients, Lisa would let out a loud sigh or roll her eyes. Once she straight up said I was making a scene. I brushed it off. I thought maybe she was tired or simply didn't grasp how dangerous it was. Then, roughly 6 months ago, the remarks became sharper. We were having dinner at her parents' place. Her mom had prepared Thai dishes. I politely asked whether the sauce contained peanuts. Lisa laughed and told her mom I was being overly paranoid about food. She said I used my allergy as an excuse to control what everyone ate. I corrected her right in front of them. I said no, this is a genuine, documented medical issue. Her mom was wonderful about it and showed me every single ingredient label. But Lisa looked furious that I had contradicted her. In the car on the way home, she lost it. She told me I had embarrassed her and made her look stupid in front of her family. I was shocked. I had only asked a normal safety question. We argued hard. She apologized later, blamed stress from her job, and I let it go. But the pattern continued. At restaurants, she would order things drenched in peanut sauce and get annoyed when I refused even a tiny bite. She'd say I was difficult and that everything revolved around my allergy. Some of her friends started chiming in too. One of them joked at a party that I was high maintenance. Lisa laughed with them and never once defended me. I started second-guessing myself. I felt like maybe I really was blowing a legitimate health issue out of proportion. 2 months ago, she brought home takeout pad thai. I read the container. Peanuts were listed clearly in the ingredients. I told her I obviously couldn't eat it. She got angry. She said I was ridiculous and that a few crumbs wouldn't kill me. I explained again that yes, they absolutely could. That's what severe means. She called me theatrical and ate it herself while I made a plain sandwich. Huge red flag. I know. I should have ended things right then. But we had already mailed save the dates. Deposits were paid. Her parents were deeply involved. It felt impossible to cancel over food disagreements. Dumb logic. I see that clearly now. A week ago, she started planning the honeymoon and wanted Thailand. I gently reminded her that Thai cuisine uses peanuts in almost everything and it would be extremely risky for me. She immediately went on the defensive. She accused me of ruining the trip, of using my allergy to dictate where we could go, of trying to control her life. That word, control, kept coming up, as if needing to stay alive was some kind of power play. We had a massive fight. I told her if she couldn't respect the reality of my allergy, we had a serious problem. She insisted I was paranoid and that people with genuine allergies didn't make everything so difficult. Genuine allergies, like mine, apparently wasn't one. She apologized the next day, again. She claimed her sister had convinced her I was probably just anxious about food and that anxiety in adults can mimic allergic reactions. I reminded her I'd had this since I was 6, with decades of medical records. She said okay, she believed me now. I thought the issue was finally settled. Then that evening happened. I got home around 6:30. Lisa said she had cooked dinner, spaghetti with meat sauce, one of my completely safe meals. She had made it tons of times before. I sat down and started eating. After a couple of bites, it tasted slightly off, sweeter than usual. I figured she had tweaked the recipe. On the 3rd or 4th bite, my lips started tingling. My tongue felt thick and heavy. I stopped, asked what exactly she had put in the sauce. She shrugged. eyes on her phone, and said the normal stuff: tomatoes, garlic, ground beef, herbs. My throat was already tightening. I asked again, more urgently, if anything was different. She said no, same as always. The swelling was getting worse fast. I stood up, went to the hall closet for my bag, and grabbed my EpiPen. That's when I heard her laugh. I turned around. She was watching me with a smirk. "What's the matter?" she asked, sounding entertained. "Something's wrong with the food," I forced out. My voice already sounded strangled. "Really?" she said, tilting her head. "Or are you just doing your dramatic thing again?" I could barely swallow. This was not anxiety. This was the real deal. My hands shook as I pulled out the EpiPen. "You're actually going to use that?" she asked. "Over spaghetti?" I jammed it into my thigh. The rush of epinephrine helped a little, but my airway was still closing. I needed a hospital immediately. "I put peanut butter in the sauce," she said calmly, almost proudly. "Just one spoonful, to prove you've been faking it all along." I stared at her, fighting for every breath. "You're fine," she added, rolling her eyes. "See? Nothing's happening. It's all in your head." I wasn't fine. The EpiPen buys minutes, not a cure. I fumbled for my phone, dialed 911, and wheezed out my address and anaphylaxis. The dispatcher told me units were on the way and asked me to stay on the line, but I couldn't speak anymore. Lisa saw the call, and her smirk disappeared. "What are you doing?" I couldn't answer. I was focused on pulling air through the narrowing gap in my throat. "You're seriously calling an ambulance?" Her voice was rising. I nodded, and, with the tiny bit of strength I had left, grabbed a zip bag from the kitchen drawer and scraped some sauce and noodles into it. Evidence. "Why are you saving the food?" she demanded, starting to sound nervous. Sirens approached. Thank God we lived close to a station. Lisa began panicking for real. "This is insane. You're perfectly fine. When they get here, just tell them it was a false alarm." I shook my head and staggered to the door. I opened it just as the paramedics rushed up. "Anaphylaxis," I croaked, pointing to the used EpiPen on the table. They sprang into action: oxygen mask, vitals, questions. Lisa hovered behind them. "He's okay, really. He gets anxious. He does this sometimes." One paramedic turned to her. "Ma'am, his airway is almost completely closed. This is life-threatening." They loaded me onto the stretcher. I clutched the bag of pasta and whispered to the nearest medic. "Evidence she put peanuts in it." "I'm severely allergic," she admitted it. His expression darkened. He looked at Lisa, then back at me. "She deliberately put peanuts in your food, knowing you're allergic?" I nodded weakly. He took the bag. "We'll make sure this gets tested." Lisa tried to follow us out. "That's our dinner. You can't take that. He's overreacting." The paramedic closed the ambulance doors on her. Inside the rig they started in 4, pushed more epinephrine, steroids, antihistamines. One of them radioed the ER that they were bringing in a deliberate allergen exposure, possible criminal poisoning, and that they had a food sample. The other asked if I wanted police to meet us at the hospital. I nodded yes. At the ER, they rushed me straight back. More drugs, monitoring, the works. My throat was still badly swollen, but the meds were finally winning. I could draw shallow breaths again. A nurse took my full history. When I explained my fiancé had intentionally added peanut butter to prove I was faking, her face went hard. "That's assault at minimum," she said. "Possibly attempted murder, depending on the prosecutor." Attempted murder. Hearing it out loud made my stomach drop. 2 officers arrived about 20 minutes later, a younger guy and a seasoned female officer. I walked them through everything. The 2 years of dismissive comments, the escalation, her confession minutes earlier. The female officer asked if I had proof beyond my word. I told them the paramedics had the food sample. She left to track it down and came back with the sealed bag. "It reeks of peanut butter," she said. "Lab will confirm, but there's no doubt." The male officer asked where Lisa was. I said she was probably on her way. She had been blowing up my phone. I showed him the flood of texts. He radioed other units to watch the ER entrance. They took my formal statement, photographed the used EpiPen, my medical alert bracelet, the foresight, everything. Half an hour later, the male officer got a call, stepped out, and returned. "She just walked into the lobby," he said. "Uniforms are bringing her back now." My heart sank. She actually came here. The female officer stayed with me while her partner handled the arrest. A few minutes later, I heard Lisa's voice echoing down the hall. "I have every right to see my fiancé." Then the calm, firm voices of officers. "Ma'am, step back. You're under arrest." For what? I didn't do anything. Assault with a deadly weapon. You have the right to remain silent. Her voice faded as they took her away. The female officer looked at me gently. She's in custody. You did the right thing. This wasn't an accident. She admitted it. Doctors kept me overnight because of the risk of a second wave, biphasic reaction. I finally looked at my phone. 17 missed calls, dozens of texts that went from worried, "Are you okay? I'm so sorry," to defensive, "You're making this way bigger than it is," to angry, "You're ruining everything," to pleading, "Please drop the charges, we can fix this." I didn't reply to a single one. An hour later, a nurse said police were back with the suspect for identification and follow-up. The female officer returned. They had arrested Lisa again at our apartment when they served the warrant. She'd gone home and trashed the place. When confronted with the food evidence and my medical file, she admitted everything. That she added peanut butter deliberately because she believed I was faking for attention and control. They charged her with assault with a deadly weapon. In our state, knowingly exposing someone to a lethal allergen qualifies. More charges could follow. She gave me her card and said I'd need to come in the next day to sign the formal complaint once discharged. Morning came. Vitals stable, swelling gone. Doctor discharged me with the usual warnings. I took an Uber straight to the station, signed everything, and requested an emergency protective order. Granted within the hour, Lisa was forbidden from contacting me or coming within 500 feet. My brother picked me up afterward. We went with my dad and 2 of his buddies to the apartment to get my belongings. Lisa had destroyed what she could, smashed dishes, ripped clothes, poured bleach on some of my suits. We packed whatever was salvageable, loaded 2 trucks, and I left my key on the counter. The lease was in my name only. I texted the landlord, attached the police report, and explained I was breaking the lease due to domestic violence. He waived all penalties and told me to take care of myself. That same afternoon, Lisa's bail was set at $50,000. Her parents posted it. She was released that evening, but the protective order was already active. Her family immediately went on the attack, calling my parents, screaming that I was evil and vindictive. My parents shut them down. Her friends flooded group chats and posted vague social media rants about false accusations and abusive men. I blocked every number and left every chat. Our wedding vendors started calling to confirm final details. One by one, I explained what happened. Every single vendor, venue, caterer, photographer, florist, canceled the contracts and refunded 100% of the deposits. None of them wanted their name attached to attempted murder. 2 weeks later was the preliminary hearing. Lisa showed up with an expensive lawyer her parents hired. She wouldn't meet my eyes. The defense tried to claim it was an accident, that she didn't understand the severity. The prosecutor played her texts, her recorded admission to police, my 23 years of medical records. The judge bound her over for trial. For months of delays later, the actual trial lasted 2 days. Prosecution, food evidence, lab results confirming peanut protein, paramedic testimony, ER records, my childhood hospital files, the 911 call, texts, police body cam of her confession. Defense tried to paint me as controlling and mentally ill, claimed she was only trying to cure my irrational fear. My lifelong medical documentation buried that argument. Jury was out 3 hours. Guilty of assault with a deadly weapon. Sentencing 2 weeks later. 3 years in state prison, eligible for parole after 18 months, balance suspended, plus mandatory anger management and allergy education classes. Her family screamed at the judge and had to be removed. I didn't feel triumph, just profound relief that it was over. That was 18 months ago. Lisa was released last month after serving the minimum. The protective order is now permanent, no contact ever. Her family still occasionally posts online about the injustice and the vindictive ex who destroyed their daughter over a misunderstanding. I know the truth. The courts know the truth. And most importantly, I'm still breathing. That's what matters.